All right, now we're going to take another look at definitions. Now, I know we already looked at definitions earlier in this section, but those were just preliminary definitions to help you as you were writing your case. Now we want to look more closely at more reliable definitions that you're actually going to insert in your case and read every round. So these definitions are more important, and we really want to make sure we pick good, flawless definitions. And again, definitions are crucial to setting the boundaries for the round and to make sure that everyone's on the same page. We define all the terms in order to be clear on exactly what we are debating about. And especially in LD, which is very philosophical, sometimes rounds do boil down to the nitty-gritty of the definitions. Sometimes arguments hinge on certain words in the definition, and things can become very, very important. We have to know exactly what these are to a T. And we have to also make sure that we know what we're debating about, because sometimes words have multiple different meanings. For example, one year in the NCFCA, we debated nationalism versus globalism. The word globalism had several different meanings. One meaning was globalism was the interest, upholding the interests of the world. Another definition of globalism meant we're interacting with everyone on a global basis. There were different definitions, and so people had to agree on definitions to make sure they were debating on the same things and actually having a real productive debate. So we need definitions. There are a few things you want to define with your definitions. You want to define words in the resolution. So with the fair trade versus free trade resolution, you'd want to define conflict. You want to define fair trade. You want to define free trade. You also want to define your value, get a definition of your value. You also, if you have one, get a definition of your criterion. Okay, get a definition of all of those things. And then you're going to look in a dictionary to get these definitions. Don't make up your own definitions, because that's not going to go over well. Sometimes you can make up your own definition for your value and criterion, but for the resolution words, you have to get a credible definition. So look in a dictionary. I recommend an online dictionary like Merriam-Webster or Oxford or dictionary.com. You could also use a paper dictionary, but that might become a bit more of a pain once we go into preparing evidence, because you have to bring all your evidence into the round with you, and I don't want you to have to lug a giant dictionary into the round, although I guess you could make a photocopy. But anyway, just get a dictionary, find the definitions, cite the dictionary from where you got your definitions for credibility. So for example, you could say, Oxford Dictionary defines fair trade as blah, 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 blah. Notice I cited the word Oxford. I cited the dictionary that I got my definition from. You also want to make sure your definitions are above reproach. They need to be high quality, good, reasonable definitions. So get a definition that's from a good dictionary, not some dumpy dictionary. Get a good dictionary and make sure it's a good definition. Just because it comes from a good dictionary doesn't mean it's a reasonable definition. A good definition should be fair and not weighted to one side. It shouldn't be abusive to the other side. It shouldn't be unfairly biased towards your side. And a good test to see if the definition is fair is to ask yourself, can I use these definitions on both sides of the debate? If I'm defining free trade in this way, would I still like that definition if I was on the fair trade side? If I'm defining fair trade in this way, would I like this definition either side I was on? A good definition should be acceptable to both sides. Like you shouldn't define, if you're on the side of free trade, you shouldn't define fair trade as something really, really bad to make your opponent look bad, because that's not fair, and you wouldn't like that if you were on the other side. So good definitions, you should be able to use them on both sides of the debate. Everyone should be happy with them, and just use your common sense. So again, consult a dictionary. Be a little careful. Some dictionaries have a lot of definitions for one word. Just pick the one definition that makes the most sense and the one definition that you agree with the most. So that's how you sort of get definitions for your case. And yeah, I recommend an online dictionary, but it really doesn't matter. All right, so now it's time for you to find some definitions for your case and add them to your outline. So take some time to do that. It's step 6 in the handout I gave you, and then after that, we're going to move on to preparing our contentions.